Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's class. So, today's class, we're going to consider project cost management. So, what we are basically going to focus on in today's class is the aspect of the project that has to do with money. Where do we get the money from? How do we spend the money? And how do we verify and come to a conclusion of how to make sure we don't spend more than as expected? So all those are the things we are going to consider in this today's class. So we're going to start now. Project cost management. So when we look at project cost management, we are looking at the process of estimating, budgeting, and controlling costs so that the project is completed within the approved budget. So project cost management as a whole is focused on funds. And there is no way we can talk about funds without talking about budget. So which means we must have an idea of how much is going to cost us to complete the project. And one thing I would also like you to take note of as a project manager is that when you are dealing with project cost management, you can't totally or fully get your costing without your WBS. So which means your effective costing for your project is also related to how well your WBS has been broken down. So if it has not been decomposed properly, then it becomes difficult for you to carry out your costing. Then another thing again I would like you to take note of as a project manager is that you must understand that there is no way you can have a total budget for your project without considering or putting aside funds for all risk events, which we refer to as likely uncertainty that may occur in the project. So which means your costing for your project is not complete when there is no estimation for the risk event. So which means money must be kept aside to cater for any uncertain event or situation that may occur in your project. That is what project cost management is all about. And another thing again you must take note of as a project manager is that there is what we refer to as a life cycle costing. Life cycle costing. What do we mean by a life cycle costing? A life cycle costing is that type of costing that takes place whereby the project manager bring into existence an entire cost for the product. So which means the project manager take note and put measures in place to take care of the entire cost of the project. Now, when we use the word entire cost, this also includes the cost of the product and the cost of maintaining the product. So project cost management is not just focused on the project alone, so which means there must also be a cost that should be kept aside to cater for maintenance. So that kind of costing is what we refer to as what a life cycle costing. Okay, so a life cycle costing is a type of cost that take care of the cost estimate for completing the project and also for maintaining the project. when the project has been completed. All right, that becomes a life cycle costing. So there is no way we can carry out project cost management without following the 4 project management processes. The first on the list, we have plan cost management, and that must be done under the process group planning. We have estimate cost, and that must be done under the process group estimate planning also. Then determine cost, determine budget. That will be done under the process group under planning. Then the last one, which is control cost, which will be carried out under the process group called monitoring and controlling. So this is the 4 processes or the 4 project management processes that you will follow through in ensuring you have a proper project cost. Now, let's look at them one after the other. Plan cost management. So when we talk about plan cost management, we are simply saying that that is the process that involves identifying how you are going to plan, how you are going to manage, and how you are going to control project cost. So it is more like in this process you are having a meeting whereby in that meeting everybody is going to sit down and decide, okay, how do we intend to plan for this cost? How do we intend to manage this cost? And how do we intend to control this cost? So you see that in that meeting, what will now happen? There will now be an establishment of policies, establishment of procedures, because everybody is going to bear their mind. Oh, this is what I think we can do regarding cost. So every suggestions made will be documented, which become an establishment of policy, procedures, all right, and documentation for planning, managing, expanding, and controlling project cost. So at the end of this, what are we trying to get at? You see that the key benefit of this process is that it will now provide a guidance and direction on how project cost will be managed throughout the project. So which means every other person that will be part of the project will make reference to this document so that they can know, okay, this is what has been planned, this is what has been designed, that everybody will follow in order to be able to manage cost for the project. Okay, that is what plan cost management. Now, the question now is, what do we want to achieve? It becomes the cost management plan. So the cost management plan becomes the official document for managing costs for this particular project we are working on. Okay, and in that document you can see that different aspects of the document will be structured. Where will the money come from? How do we release the money? And what percentage of money should be accrued? What is the control threshold? Okay, all these are little information that will be contained in the cost management plan. The level of accuracy and other informations you have in your cost management plan. Now, there is this word here, control threshold. What does it mean when we use the word control threshold? I would like you to note that in projects, especially when we deal with costs and we are saying control threshold, we are saying that these are the amount of variations allowed before you need to begin to take actions. So which means at the beginning of plan cost management, you must have stated it categorically that, well, there must be a control threshold. So if, for instance, we plan to spend 1,000, we can now put a control threshold of 1,100, which means the moment we spend more than 1,000 and we are spending 1,100, it becomes a red flag for you as the project manager to quickly what? Take action. And that is why we refer to it as what? Control threshold. Okay? So it becomes the amount of variation that you will permit in the project to take place before you begin to take action, before you think of what to do, so that will not bring your project backward. Okay, now let's now look at estimate cost. Estimate cost. Yes, before we look at estimate cost, any question for me? Kennedy, any question for me? BC, any question? Okay, BC, what about you, please? Hello, BC, is it clear? Can I go on? Okay, so let's look at the second process, which is estimate cost. Now, when we say estimate cost, what we are actually talking about in this process is that let's now do the calculation of what each item, of what each activity or task will cost us. So estimate cost, as estimation or as it sounds, is to do your calculation. Alright, so now by doing calculation, we are saying at this point we want to put in the monetary value for every task that will be completed. So that amount of money that you are going to begin to apportion to every task that will be completed in the project, what are you doing? You are estimating the cost. Take note, in this process of estimate cost, it is not the project manager that does this process alone. It is simply the process that is done by the team. So the team together sit down to estimate cost. Now, why is it possible, or why do we need to involve the team? Because involving the team makes the estimation more accurate. And that is the reason why you should involve the team. So involving the team in your estimation makes it more accurate. Okay? And that is the major reason for involving the team. So estimate cost is the process that involves coming up with the cost estimate for each of the activities. Alright, so we're not saying that, okay, activity 1, what is the cost for we to do that task? You must take note of that cost. Let's look, for example, we are working on a building project, for example. Now, in that building project, you have been able to divide or do your WBS, and in your WBS, we succeeded by achieving that, okay, the first part of the project will be the part where we will do foundation. Then the second part is where we do flooring. Then the third part is when we will do block work and all that. Now, estimate cost is saying that now you are going to break out all the activities we need to do, all the tasks we need to do to achieve foundation, and now begin to attach money to it. Okay, if for instance to do foundation we have to clear the land. Now you now find out, are we going to use human resources to clear or to use machine? If we are going to use machine, how much will it cost us? And how many days are we going, if you are to use machine and 1 day use of machine is 5,000. So if 1 day use of machine is 5,000, so how many days will it now cost us if we are making use of it for 7 days? That is what estimate cost. So all the monetary approximation for the resources that will be used to complete the project is part of what you estimate. So that is for clearing the land. So what about for digging? Oh, you now say, okay, we can't rent machinery for digging. Okay, let's get a booking to help us, for example, to help us come and do the digging. Then you now ask, okay, how much do we pay one person? Now say, oh, you pay one person 10,000 for digging. Then how many people do we need to come and dig the foundation? Oh, we need 7 people or 8 people or 10 people. So you can see those calculations. That is what estimate cost. Alright, so the key benefit here is that it determines the amount of cost required to complete the project work. So that is what exactly we want to achieve. Then there's what refers to as what basis of estimate. Basis of estimate is a term that describes that how did you come to that cost estimation. Like for instance, I was saying that, let's say for instance, the cost estimation for digging the foundation is 200,000, and they are not asking you, project manager, how do you arrive at 200,000? Oh, that explanation you gave or you are going to give as a base is referred to as what basis of estimate. For example, okay, this foundation, the cost for bringing one person to dig is 10,000, and now we are using 20 people, and because we are using 20 people to finish this job once at a go, we are going to spend 200,000. So that explanation on how you arrive at your cost estimation is what refers to as what basis of estimate. Then what we want to achieve in this process of cost estimation is to now actually have the estimate of completing or the cost estimate for each activities that we have in the project. That is simply what we mean by what estimate cost. Alright, now what are the different categories of cost we have in project management? Yes, Kennedy, what do you say is the difference between direct cost and indirect cost?
Direct cost, in my knowledge,
I can hear you, go on.
direct costs are those costs that directly affected the project, like those costs that have to do directly with the project, like those engineers involved. My direct costs are those costs that have to do with supply, arranging local development, project, for the awareness.
Okay, okay, all right. BC, yes, what do you have to say? What will you say regarding direct costs and indirect costs? Or do you want to talk about variable costs and fixed costs? Okay, so let's move on. Um, in the case of direct costs, as you have explained, I think that is absolutely correct. Okay, so your explanation for direct cost is very, very correct. So when you say that the direct costs as a sound, those costs that are attributable to the project being executed or the project being worked on is what direct cost. Just like the cost that the engineers will incur working on the project, they are referred to as direct cost. Then indirect cost, just like as you also said, that let's now say some people are working in the organization, but they are not part of the project that is being worked on. So the amount of money that the project pays to those set of people that are not part of the project but they work in the organizations refers to as what? Indirect costs. So indirect costs technically are those um, cost overhead item or cost incurred for the benefit of more than one project. So for instance now, let's say for instance the person that is working in that organization is the cleaner, and the people performing the project is not part of them, but he cleans the offices. All right. So if you have three departments or three different teams working on a project, he's the one that clean the office of the team A, clean the office of team B, clean the office of team C. They are different projects they are working on, but indirectly he benefit because those projects pays him. Or another example is in the case of maybe in your office you have a Wi-Fi. All right. You see that the cost for the Wi-Fi is indirect to the project because every other department are making use of the Wi-Fi, not just the project department alone. Okay, so technically, when we say indirect costs, they are costs that are like overhead costs. Okay, or uh, when all those costs that are incurred for the benefit of more than one project, like your taxes, like your fringe benefits, all those janitorial services, all those are examples of indirect costs. Then we also have variable cost and fixed cost. Yes, quickly, Kennedy. Variable cost and fixed cost. What will you say they are?
Fixed costs are costs that does not change for for a period of time. Don't change. They are fixed for a considerable period of time. Something like electricity. Uh, electricity sounds and they don't change for a period of time. The next factor over such for instance, the project that cost like electricity and they are not direct. I mean, they are not based on the period when the project start finish. Then variable cost and cost that changes from time to time. They are not fixed, but they change as a result of the situation. Let's say cost of buying and selling or cost of renting staff for a project. They are not fixed because without that, they are not fixed. You get to pay for this amount over the future.
Exactly. Thank you very much. That really explains what variable cost and fixed costs means. All right. So in the case of fixed costs, all right, they don't change. All right. So even if production changes, they don't change. We now say, okay, let's do 5 projects. The cost of the rent of the building will not change because you are embarking on 2, 3 projects. Or you now say, okay, let's increase the number of staff that will be coming to office. Will not change the amount you are paying for the office space. All right. That is what a fixed cost. Okay. Then a variable cost changes as usage increase. So the more you use, the more the cost changes. That becomes what? Variable cost. So if for instance you are using more material, for instance you budget material for 10,000 and you are using more, you definitely increase the budget to keep buying. It becomes what? Variable cost, which means is that cost that can change all right, based on the usage of that particular resources. So take note of that. Then, so what cost should you estimate? All right, take note that cost involves in all the effort needed to complete the project. So what aspects of what do we actually cost? Take note that we must cost quality effort. There must be cost arrangement for cost of risk. Also cost of the project manager's time, cost of project management activities, costs directly associated with the project, including labors and materials, training for the project, computers and other things, expenses for physical office space used directly for the project. All these are areas where it should be costed. Also, even profit, when applicable, it should be costed. Overhead costs, such as management salary, general office maintenance, all these are areas that the project manager must try as much as possible to carry out his costing. Now, let's now look at the different cost estimating techniques. What are the different estimating techniques? All right, like we said earlier, that these estimating techniques are also the same estimating techniques when we discuss about schedule. The same estimating techniques used for estimating your schedule is the same estimating techniques used for cost estimation, is the same estimating techniques used for your resources estimation. You want to know the number of people you should bring on board to calculate the resources, the machinery, is still the same estimating techniques. All right? Analogous estimating technique is saying that they are the same project. You are working on a project that is the same to a project that was done 2 months ago. All you just do, because they are the same, you just lift the values or the estimations. That is what analogous estimation. So previous project values used in your current project because they are similar. They are the same project. Also in the case of parametric, it's the same using previous project cost, but in this case, you are only using the variable aspect. Those aspects. Now, take note, parametric doesn't, because it's a previous project, is not necessarily going to be the same project you are working on currently. But maybe there are some variables in a previous project that you just pick out and use that variable, like for instance, your square meter, variable like footage, square footage in construction, or variables like the windows, variable, all those little variables. Oh, variables like the type of paint they use in your previous project, and because you are working on a current project, that's okay. I like that paint we use in that project. You pick that paint and you use it to do calculation for your current project. That is parametric estimation. All right. Then bottom-up estimation is the most reliable form of estimation, which means as a sound bottom up, we are saying that this technique involves creating detailed estimation for each part of your project activities. So which means technically you start from your work package. This bottom up estimation is the more reason why we said that WBS is very important when we come to costing. This is exactly why we've said that. If not, your costing for your project, any other method would have worked. But this aspect makes it more reliable. Why? Because bottom-up estimation starts from those little tasks that you have been able to decompose in your WBS and begin to pick those costs and roll up the costs. Roll up means to summarize the cost. All right. So let's say for instance now we're talking about building project. You look at cost for foundation. Now you can't know the cost for foundation until you begin to calculate the cost of clearing the cost of clearing the land And if, for instance, you are going to use bulldozer because of some stump and everything you need to do, so the cost of that bulldozer, the cost of the person that will use the bulldozer, the cost of the refreshment you will give when that is taking place, that is a cost. Now, the cost for digging the foundation, we calculate it. Now, the cost of buying cement and other materials and sand that will be used to do the blinding, that is another thing. The cost for even the person that will do the mapping. So you can see that all these little costs sum up together formed the cost for foundation. That is what we mean by bottom-up estimation. So you see that by the time we sum all the little tasks, the cost for performing the little tasks, which is specified here as specified details, they now sum them up, they form what? The cost for what? Foundation. That is why we said that bottom-up estimation is the most reliable form of estimation. So in project we have four major forms of estimation. We have the analogous estimation, we have the parametric, we have the 3-point estimating techniques, and we have the bottom-up. The bottom-up estimation is the most reliable. Why? Because it starts your estimation from the little task in your project. Okay, so there are other techniques that we can also look at, like the reserve analysis. We are going to look at reserve analysis. We're also going to look at cost of quality when we are looking at quality. So all these are different techniques that are useful. So I will explain reserve analysis in a more detailed way very soon. So let's quickly look at some form of estimations that can occur in a project. Some form of estimations that can occur in a project. You will discover that when you are starting a project, at the early phase of the project, there are some basic form of estimation that is acceptable. Why? Because at that stage, it is expected that the information to determine the actual cost for the project are not yet known. So that is why we want to look at the different kind of cost estimates at different interval in the project. So for instance, there is what we refer to as the rough order of magnitude, ROM, rough order of magnitude. What do we mean by the rough order of magnitude? The rough order of magnitude, technically as it sounds, is also referred to as what? Ballpark. Okay? And it is that cost estimation that is made during project initiation. That is what? The rough order of magnitude. So ROM is that cost estimation that is made at the early stage of the project, when we are still discussing about what it will take us to complete this project in terms of cost. That amount of money you will give must be in a range, and this is the accuracy range for that amount of money. We refer to it as what? The rough order of magnitude. And what is the range that must be stated? It will be minus 25% of the actual amount to plus 75% of the actual amount. So which means, if for instance you know in your mind, or maybe from previous projects, and you have done that project before in the time past, and somebody now comes to you and say, you know what, Kennedy, we are about to embark on this project. Technically, you're not going to tell the person, I've done the project before, but you are discussing the project. And now, because you are now using experience, you know what the project entails. So, rough order of magnitude is saying that because you know that, oh, let's say for instance, the amount you used to complete the project at the previous time was like 5 million. When you're now discussing with this new client, it is expected that you provide the rough order of magnitude at the initial stage. So which means you are going to calculate 25% of 5 million which is you minus it from it. So 25% of 5 million is about 1.25, right? Is that correct? No, is it 1.25 or 1.75? Hello, are you there, Kennedy? So, all right.
Yes,
So,
I'm with you.
all right. So that is like 1.75. So which means you are going to subtract 25% of 5 million from the 5 million. Whatever you have will be like 3 million something something. 3,250,000. Then you also calculate 75% of 5 million, which is about 3 point something, 325 or 375, 3,700,000 and something thousand. So you add it to the amount. So the rough order of magnitude will be minus 25% of the actual amount plus 75% of the actual amount. So at the early stage of your project, take note, this is the right estimation that should be provided. Okay? Now, why is it expected you provide this form of estimation? Because the project is still early. You have not gone further to do your own personal calculation, but you are just using experience from previous project. But because you don't want to give the man or the customer a direct figure, you put it in this range. This is the actual standard range for project estimation at the early stage. Then let's now assume you now have the project. Okay, now at this point there is now what we call budget estimate. Okay, so when we say budget estimate, this is the type of estimate that is usually made during project planning. Just like as you can see, when you have started planning the project, you now have information, you are now gathering information, you are gathering more information. So your budget estimate is minus 10% of the actual to plus 25% of the actual. Okay, so at this point you are having more information to do your calculation. Okay, that is what budget estimate. Then the third and the most one, which is the definitive or the derivative or deterministic or the bottom up estimation, is now that you have all the information and you have created your WBS. For you to have all the information, it means that you will be able to create your WBS. So now you have created your WBS, so all those information you have becomes valid in terms of being able to carry out your estimation. And we said that the estimation range for such is between minus 5% to plus 10%. All right, so minus 5% to plus 10%. So you see that at this stage you are very sure of the amount it will take you to complete the project. All right, so take note of this, that rough order of magnitude or ballpark is used during the early stage of your project. Budget estimate is used when you have information to plan for your project. Then bottom up estimate is now used when you have those information to create your WBS. Okay, so that is that about our estimation technique. What we want to achieve is to have your cost estimate for the project, which is the numerical cost values in the agreed currency, maybe in naira or in pounds or in dollars or in yen, whatever estimation that you prefer. All right, that is the numerical value for it. Then I've also explained the basis of estimate, the calculation that you do, how you arrive at those amounts of money. Okay, so that is that. Then the next process after you have done your cost estimate is to determine your budget. It will now, okay, now I know what it will cost us in terms of all the little tasks that needs to be done for foundation. So also you carry out cost estimates for all the little tasks that you will do for flooring. You carry cost estimates for all the little tasks that you will do for block work. You do your cost estimate for all the little tasks for you do for roofing and other things. So determine budget is now that process in the project where you now sum all the cost estimates together from different phase of the project. So you now know now, oh, it will take me 500,000 to do foundation. It will take me 250,000 to do block work. It will take me 300,000 to do roofing. It will take me so amount 400,000 to do plastering. All right. All the summation now, you now put all of them together is what refers to as what determine budget. So determine budget is now the summation of all the cost estimates that have been calculated. Okay, and that is why we said that determine budget is the process of what aggregating. The other word for aggregating is to sum. When the project manager now calculates all the amount of money it will cost to complete the project, all right, so we call it what determine budget. Okay, so we are saying that who does this phase of who does determine budget is the project manager. Is not the one that sit down and now sum all the costs for each of those activities or each of the work package and sum them up. That is what will form what your determine budget. So determine budget is, yes, you see this English here. In this English you said aggregating. The other word for aggregating simply means what? To summarize or to put together. So it's mostly the word aggregating is the word summarize, summary or summation. Okay, take note of that. Now, what do we want to achieve when we are trying to determine budget is to have what we refer to as a cost baseline. So when we are determining budget, we are trying to sum or put all the costs together, which is aggregating all the costs together or summing all the costs together, is to now have what we refer to as what? Cost baseline. What then is a cost baseline? The cost baseline automatically becomes the approved amount that we will definitely have to spend in this particular project. The approved amount. So the cost baseline becomes the approved amount that, okay, this is the portion of the budget that the project manager will have control over. So it becomes the amount the project manager have control over, which is approved for the project. Okay, so that is what the cost baseline. Now, the technique for this, you can see on the screen, cost aggregation, which is to aggregate, to sum up all the different costs together, is what we mean by aggregation. So the technique for determining budget is what? Cost aggregation, is to sum up. All right. Then reserve analysis. Like I told you earlier, that there is no way we can be able to determine our budget without taking estimation for the possible risk event that can occur in the project. Now, that money you will keep aside to take care of any risk event that may occur in the project is what we refer to as what? Reserve analysis. Please take note. All right. So reserve analysis is that money the project manager, all right, tells the organization to keep aside in case of any eventuality that may occur in the project or in case of any uncertainty that may occur in the project. That money that is kept aside to take care of that uncertainty is what we refer to as what? Reserve analysis. All right. So in costing, we have two types of reserve analysis. We have the contingency reserve analysis and the management reserve analysis. Contingency reserve analysis and the management reserve analysis. Now let me now explain them one after the other. What do we mean by contingency reserve analysis and management reserve analysis? Take note, when we use the word contingency reserve analysis, we are saying that that is the amount of money that the project manager is going to ensure that they keep aside to take care of identified risk that may most likely occur in the project. Now, I use the word identify, which means the project manager at this stage has done an estimation or an analysis of the possible risks that may occur, and he now decide to keep money to take care of those risks if it occurs. We refer to it as what? Contingency reserve. So contingency reserve is the amount of money the project manager keep aside for those risks he has identified that will occur, and in situation whereby the at risk occur, he spend those money to take care of that particular risk. We refer to it as what? Contingency. Now, in our daily English, is what some organization refers to as miscellaneous. Why do they refer to it as miscellaneous? In case of incasity. So in eventuality of any incasity, they go to their miscellaneous to take money and use for that eventuality. But in project management, we don't use miscellaneous. We refer to it as what? Contingency reserve. So it is this contingency reserve that the project manager has control over, and he has power over the contingency reserve. But in the case of management reserve, it is management in their wisdom that decide to keep that money aside in case of any risk that may occur in the project that they did not identify. Take note, not identify. So any risk that the project manager and his team they did not identify, and if that risk occur, management in their wisdom has kept some funds aside to be able to cater for such risk when that particular risk occur. So we can say in summary that management reserve is that amount of money that is kept aside to accommodate unknown and unidentified risk. In this case, the project manager does not have control over what? Management reserve. Alright? The project manager does not have control over management. He don't even know what is the management reserve. You don't even know the amount that have been taken for management for that particular amount. Okay, so that becomes very important when we discuss reserve analysis. All right, so you can see funding limit reconciliation. All right, it is always important that when we talk about any project where there will be fund, there must be what? Reconciliation. All right. So there must be a commitment of fund that we will definitely be reconciling. Okay, let's say for instance that every expenditure, any amount spent, it's okay, we're going to do it in such a way that if we spend 1 million, we must hold on and check how far and what we are spending money for. That is, there's what? Funding limit reconciliation. We must keep reconciling what our expenses to what we intend to spend the money on. All right, so this is a summary of our reserve analysis. Now, there's something I would also like to mention here for the purpose of exam. So you can see the concept of bottom-up estimation. You can see the activity. Let's say for instance this work package is foundation. This is block work, and this other one is maybe roofing. Foundation are all the activities that needs to be done to complete foundation. You see the estimation, $100, $200, $300. By the time they sum it up, you cannot see it. So this process of keep summing from the bottom is what we refer to as what? Bottom up estimation. Until you keep summing, you now get to the final estimation, which is $7,260. Okay, so that is that. Now, there's something I want to bring to your notice. You see that we have what we refer to as project cost. What is a project cost? You can see at this point, a project cost is the amount that have been estimated to actually take care of the project. Is the amount of the money that will actually take care of the project. All right. You can see at the side of the project, we said riskless estimation, which means at this point, we've not estimate the amount of risk that may occur. So you cannot see that project cost, then ahead of it, you now see that the contingency reserve have been estimated. You see the side, you said for identified risk. Okay, so take note that cost baseline is equals to cost baseline is equals to contingency reserve plus project cost. That is cost baseline. So cost baseline is equals to contingency reserve plus project cost. And we said that the cost baseline, as you can see, $6,600 becomes the money that the project manager has authority over. That is the one the project manager can control. But you cannot see that management reserve, the management in their wisdom decide to keep $6,660 in case of eventuality. You see the purpose for unidentified risk. They added it to the cost baseline to give you the amount. So take note, cost budget is equals to cost baseline plus management reserve. That is why sometimes in some government projects, you don't know the total cost of the project. It is only the cost estimation cost you gave to them and all the contingency reserve you added to it. And in their own wisdom, they cannot add their own management reserve in case of any eventuality. All right? So that is why sometimes you now see a project you did for a government that maybe you gave them estimation of 10 million. Then maybe you're now reading on the newspaper, you now discover that that project that you did for 10 million, government or the officials, they wrote 50 million. It's because they have kept some management reserve in case of what eventuality. That is for government project anyway. Okay, please take note of that. Yes, so far, any question, Kennedy? Any question, Kennedy?
I'm okay.
Okay. All right, so let's move on. So the next thing we will look at is the aspect of control cost. So control cost is that process of monitoring the status of the project, all right, to update, to know if there is any adjustment to the cost baseline. So technically, control cost, we are trying to say that let's compare the actual cost for what we have done as against the cost we plan to spend. So control cost is that process in project cost management where the project manager pays attention to the cost variations. He pays attention to what we plan to spend money on and ensuring that is that what we've actually spent money on, or we plan that at the first phase of the project we are supposed to spend 1 million. Control cost is ensuring that to find out if we actually spend that 1 million. That is what control cost. All right. So which means at this point of control cost, it is the project managers making sure he analyzes the relationship between the consumption of the project funds to the physical work being done. So which means at this point, the project manager will check the cost of work that has been done as against the planned cost that should be expended for the project. All right. So the essence of control cost, you can see, is to provide the means to recognize variance from the plan, so that if we discover that there is any variance, we can quickly take action. That is what the summary of control cost. So control cost in a simple word is saying that you plan to spend 1,000 naira today. You are now coming back to check, and that 1,000 naira is supposed to spend it for 2 items. Control cost is saying that you now come to monitor those 2 items we said we will spend 1,000 naira. What is the actual cost we spent on those 2 items? Did we spend the 1,000 naira, or we spend less or spend more? That knowledge you have as a result of your plans for cost is what we refer to as what? Control cost. Alright, so it is that process of carrying out a comparison or analysis of checking what we plan to spend money on and what we eventually spend money on. How much we plan to spend, and how much we eventually spend. That is what the concept of what? Control cost. I just hope that is clear. Hello, Kenneth, is that clear?
Yes.
Alright. So what do we want to achieve when we control costs is that we're going to have work performance information to be able to make decisions, to come to the conclusion that yes, we are spending the money rightly or we are spending the money wrongly. And if there is any variation, we can quickly make a change request and make an adjustment. That is what change request. Okay. Then we also have you cannot do a cost focus. All right. You cannot say, okay, so far we spent so amount and we have done so amount of work. So which means by 2 weeks time we should have completed this other work and would have spent so amount. So you can do a cost focus of your spending. That is what? Control cost. Then there's another aspect of control cost that we must talk about. Alright, so when we talk about the issue of control cost, there is two major aspects. And what can help us to achieve that is what we refer to as what? End value management. Now, the end value management, it is simply the technique used to check the performance measures of your project. End value management is the simple technique that can be used to measure or to check the performance measurement of your project. So how do we know if we are making progress in our project? And how do we know if we are not making progress with our project? The technique that helps us to achieve that is the end value management. So on this end value management, we want to be able to tell progress made and the status of our projects. Progress made and the status of our project. Remember, it is the responsibility to keep track of the progress of his or her project, and that can only be done with ease and accurately on or while using the end value management. Okay, I've said that the end value management is the performance measure, all right, that the project manager used to find out if he is doing well in his project. Now we are going to look at some basic end value management parameters. As you can see on the screen, we have three variables. We have EV, we have AC, we have PV. EV simply means end value. End value, which means if we say EV is end value, what we are actually saying is that this is the estimated value of the work actually completed. So we planned cost for the actual work done. So end value is the estimated value of the work that is actually completed. All right, the value of the work that was actually done is referred to it as what? End value. Then we also have what we have actual cost, which is AC. Actual cost at a sound is the amount of money incurred for the work accomplished. Money incurred for the work accomplished. That is what actual cost. In some textbook, actual cost can be also referred to as what? Total cost. All right, the amount, the actual work done. Okay, the amount of money, the actual cost incurred for the work done. While we have the third one, planned value, which is PV, is the planned cost for planned work that should have been done by now. So we can say that planned value, which is PV, is the estimated value of the work planned to be done. The estimated value of the work planned to be done. So you can see a detailed explanation on the screen for these three variables. All right, end value is the value of work completed since we started the project. What is the value of work that we have done so far? We refers to that as what? End value. All right, actual cost is the actual cost of completing the work component at a given period. Okay, what is the amount of money we have actually spent for that value of work we have achieved? So end value is the value of work done. Now, actual cost is the amount we have spent to achieve that value. Planned value of PV is the cost of work that has been put, that is in the budget that we plan to do. Just as it sounds, planned value. We plan that, okay, for this work we want to do, we plan 20,000. Then actual cost, how much did we actually spend? Oh, we spent 22,000 or less than. Then what about the value of the work? Did we complete the project? Did that money we spent, did it ensure we complete the project? There are sometimes you spend the planned cost or the planned value and the actual cost. You spend all those money and you expect, by expectation, you're supposed to have completed the particular task, but you discover that you are still 50% done. Then becomes the end value. All right. So now, let's now become more detailed. I said earlier that the end value management technique is used to measure the performance of your project. And the performance of our project can be seen in two perspectives. The first one, as you can see on the screen, is the status report. The second one is what? The progress report. So which means the end value management can be used to determine the status report of your project. And if we want to determine the status report of your project, what do we calculate? We calculate CV and SV. What is CV? CV simply means cost variance. CV simply means cost variance. And what is the formula for your CV? As you can see on the screen, the formula for your CV is that CV is equals to EV minus AC. And what does that mean? Cost variance is equals to end value, the value of work done, minus the actual amount spent on carrying out or accomplishing that task. Okay, that is for cost variance. So you can see the explanation. Cost variance is the measure of cost performance on your project. Okay, then SV, which is schedule variance, is to know the status of your schedule on your project. Okay, so what is the schedule variance? We said that is the end value minus planned value. So schedule variance formula is SV is equals to EV minus PV. Okay, schedule variance simply measures the performance of your schedule for that particular project. Is that clear? Kennedy, are you there?
Yes.
All right. So take note, write down on your notes. Let EV be 500. All right. Please take note, write down. Hello, Kennedy, please write down EV 500. Then AC 400 and PV 600. EV, I said let EV be 500. Then what about 400? Then PV uncle. Now calculate cost variance and schedule variance for us using the above figure and use this formula on the screen. Come again. You said CV is what? Are you sure? Check. No, check the value you wrote down. Yes. Okay, what about PV? Okay. Okay. So, yes. Okay. Now, hold on there. Now, thank you for that calculation. Then now, what I will need you to take note of, or what you may not have this calculation in your exam, all right? But what you may have is the interpretation. Now, take note of this interpretation. All right, number one, take note of this interpretation. If CV, if CV, if CV is negative, if CV is negative, that simply means over budget. That simply means over budget, and it is bad for your project. If CV is negative, that simply means over budget, and it is bad for your project. If CV is positive, if CV is positive, that simply means under budget, and that is good for your project. Now, what is the meaning of over budget and under budget? Over budget, as it sounds, is simply says you are spending over your budget. which means you are spending more than you budgeted, which is bad for your project. Under budget as it sound, which means you are spending less than your budget, which is very good for your project. Take note of that interpretation. If SV is negative, if your SV is negative, it simply means behind schedule. If SV is negative, it simply means behind schedule. And if SV is positive, it simply means ahead of schedule. Okay? These are the interpretation. Now, from the values you got, what will you say is the interpretation of those values? What is the meaning of those values you got to you as a project manager? Yes, what does that now mean to you?
I like you explained over budget that the negative shows over budget.
Okay.
While the positive shows under budget.
Okay. So which one are you calculating? Which no, I'm not saying that. Give me the interpretation of the question I gave to you.
Okay, the calculation.
Yes, from the calculation. Interpret that calculation now.
Okay, it means as far as project is concerned, the budget for the project is negative, which shows for CV is negative, which shows that the project is it has a problem in showing that the project has a problem of completion.
Okay.
Because the cost attached is very low. Then, the cost attached to this over.
Yes.
And which, if the project owner or project stakeholders are not in agreement with the project, might not be true. Then when it is positive, it means that the project is under budget. It gives the sign that the management or owners or stakeholders of the project will be at peace that they are still within the budget. Even though maybe their own budget and the project manager budget might be different from others. I want to say something else. Accounting, when the project is under budget, it's a negative sign that that project is hopefully and the minority of accounting, owners of those of the project is not their business with the project value. But if it is negative, so if it also if it is over budget, same thing, it means you are taking the owners of the project perspective and coming from the angle of accounting. I'm not saying that design should be
But that is what no, okay, now that is exactly what you are saying. If that is exactly what we are saying, the same thing, right? Now you said that if in accounting, if it is over budget, what does that mean?
It means when it is over budget, it means the amount management will not be at because
You are making them to overspend, which is the same thing of over budget.
because as far as accounting is concerned, the God cost.
Exactly. So your budget supposed to be 20,000, then you now go and make it 30,000. You are making them to spend more, so they may not be happy with you.
You are making it to you have
Mhm.
maybe budget is different.
No, it's not a different ball game. Oh. That is why we said over budget means negative. It's negative in the sense that you are spending more than you are expecting to spend. So technically the management will not be happy because you are making them to spend more. That is what it also means in project. That is why I gave you those interpretations. All right. So that is for understanding the status report. Now the next part is, let's now assume you want to know the progress report for your project so far. Now, under the status report, you did not tell us for SV. What about SV? What is now in the interpretation for SV?
I mentioned this. I said that in as far as project shows on the budget,
No, you are missing it up. SV.
SD is so 500 minus 400
Yes,
is 400.
yes.
And my explanation, you said that is on the budget.
No. Look at your interpretation again. SV.
When it says positive 100,
No, what is SV? What is SV?
that's 100.
No. Hold on. Just tell me the word. What is the meaning of SV? What does S and V stand for?
X and hold on, let me decide. I think I'm not wrong. That one I escaped
But SV, we said SV means what? Schedule variance.
schedule variance.
And what is the interpretation I gave you for schedule variance?
Measures performance. Schedule performance.
We can't hear you. Your mic is mute.
I said it measures schedule performance.
Okay, which is true. So what is the interpretation for schedule performance?
You said that when it is maybe positive, it means it is over budget.
Oh, which means you didn't get that part. All right.
Because when I said 500 minus 400, that's 100 positive.
All right. Okay. You are correct mathematically, but take note, the interpretation for cost variance is different from the interpretation of schedule variance. Write this down, please. All right. Schedule variance interpretation is this. If SV is negative, it simply means we are behind schedule. Schedule variance, if your SV is negative, it simply means we are behind schedule. If your SV is positive, it simply means we are ahead of schedule. That is the interpretation for schedule variance. So interpretation for schedule variance is different from the interpretation of cost variance. All right? Okay. So what is now your interpretation for your mathematics now? Exactly. All right. So take note of it on that aspect. All right. So that is why we refer to it. We refer to it as the status report. Okay. So the status report provides those information to know on. Okay. As at now, how is our project doing in terms of cost and schedule? So you can quickly do your cost variance and your what? Schedule variance. All right, that is for status report. Now, what about for the entire progress of the project? Then we now have what we refer to as CPI So take note, under the progress report, we have your CPI. CPI stands for Cost Performance Index. Now, the essence of this Cost Performance Index and SPI, Schedule Performance Index, we want to check the overall efficiency of the work that has been completed against all that we plan to complete. Or in a simple term, we want to check the progress made so far. So the efficiency of the work that have been done so far since we started, we do this aspect. So which means the CPI is what? Cost Performance Index. Then the SPI is what? Schedule Performance Index. All right? That is what? The CPI and the what? SPI. Okay? So now the formula for CPI is EV over AC. So you cannot see that it's different now. So CPI is what? Cost Performance Index. And the formula for it is what? EV over AC. Okay? So that is the formula for Cost Performance Index. So the Cost Performance Index is technically used to check the overall progress made so far in terms of cost for that particular project. We refer to it as CPI. So also, if you want to check the overall progress made so far in terms of your schedule, what do? We use SPI. So the SPI formula you can see on the screen is what? EV over PV. Okay? So now, interpretation. You can see the interpretation now on the screen. Interpretation. If CPI is equals to 1, interpretation, if CPI is equals to 1, which means the cost is moving well as per the budget. We are doing well. We are spending as the budget is. If CPI is greater than 1, it simply means we are under budget, which means we are doing better than the budget, because it's greater than 1. We are under the budget. We are doing well. But if your CPI is lesser than 1, it shows that you are what? Over budget, which means you are doing badly compared to the budget. Okay, so that is for CPI. All right. Now, also in the case of cost and schedule performance index, okay, interpretation now. If your SPI is equals to 1, it simply means that you are going well as per the schedule. Okay. If your SPI is greater than 1, it simply means you are what? Ahead of schedule, which means you are doing better. If your SPI is lesser than 1, it simply means you are behind schedule, which shows that you are not keeping up with the planned schedule. Okay, so that is the interpretation. Now, use the same values you have before. We said that EV is equals to 500. We said that AC is equals to 600. And we said that PV is equals to 400. So I want you to now calculate for CPI and SPI. Then you tell me the values and their interpretations. Are you true?
True. My network is my network is
Okay, I said you should calculate for me CPI and SPI using the same values you used earlier. Hello, did you get me? Hello, are you done? Yes. 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 Okay. Okay, so what is your CPI? Hello, what is your CPI?
I'm with you. I'm with you. My CPI, hello.
Okay, yes, I can hear you.
I said my CPI
Okay, that is 0.83. Okay, so what is the interpretation for that? Are you sure?
I'm coming on. I'm coming on. Yeah, so basically I need to go to
Okay, so what about your SPI?
the SPI is what I'm calculating now. Yes, my SPI is 1.2. It means if the project is more than one, it means the project is doing well.
All right.
Hello?
Hello, take note.
I
For
got 1.25, it means the project is doing well.
okay, so please listen to this. All right, there's a little correction to the first one you mentioned.
Okay.
All right, your CPI is 0.88. So by that 83, all right, it simply means that CPI is lesser than 1. Since it's lesser than 1, it is what? Over budget. And that simply means that you are not spending well or efficiently enough. Therefore, what I need you to know is the interpretation. All right. Okay. So also the SPI, as you can see on the screen, the SPI, you said the value you got is 1.2 something, right? So it, 1.25. So which means it is greater than 1. And if SPI is greater than 1, it simply shows that we are ahead of schedule. Do you get that? All right. So these are the areas that we often use when we are looking at measuring or controlling your costs. All right, in terms of providing status reports for your cost and schedule, or providing progress report for your cost and schedule. Okay, so you can see the values and their interpretation. So also, I also look for some formulas that you can take a look at your spare time. Okay, but we have discussed most often the one usually used for the exam. Okay, so that is the end of cost management in terms of yes, quick, you said something, please.
Sorry, I was talking to my brother.
All right, your stakeholders, no wahala.
Yes, you were saying
They are very all right, so that is it. Okay, so that is all about cost management for your project. So any question for me, sir?
for now, for now, the class is very fine.
Okay.
Think problem no question.
All right. So the video.
Right.
All right. I said I tried. I did recording. So maybe at your spare time you can still go over the recording just
Okay.
to in case some things are not clear. And if you have question, you can throw those questions later. We'll answer it.
Of course, I'll throw it to you.
Okay.
Don't worry, don't I'm doing so many things at once. I'm
Mm.
seeing my questions.
Okay. No problem. Yeah.
And WhatsApp.
No wahala. Yeah. Take care.